Welcome to the April the 30th, 1996 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of our city and some of the people that are important and have made contributions to that history. And we're very pleased today to continue our spotlight on the City Council of PTA's 50th anniversary that was celebrated recently, and in doing so we are interviewing some of the past presidents of that City Council. This is our history tape number 276, and we're just very pleased today to have two special past presidents. First of all, Nell Rogers, welcome to the set.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you very much.
And you know, there's nothing as past as a past president, they say, so we're going to get an opportunity to prove them differently today, right?
Right.
All right. Doris Ford, Ms. Jack Ford, glad to have you with us today, Doris.
Thank you very much, Ruthie. Nice to be here on such a wonderful topic.
Yes. Now, both of you wear many hats in the community, but we want to just really clue in on your tenure, the administration that you enjoyed as a past president of the City Council. And I guess, Nell, that protocol would have us do the one that was served
before.
Before,
right.
Yes.
Right.
You want her to go first.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. With that in mind then, Doris, would you look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about the real Doris Ford. Tell us a little bit about yourself personally, your family, and what brought you to Grand Prairie, Texas. Would you do that?
Okay. Well, my husband and I came to Grand Prairie in the early 60s as work was in the Dallas area at the time.
And your husband is?
Jack Ford.
All right.
He and I are currently photographers in Grand Prairie and enjoy that very much. We have 4 wonderful children that went through the Grand Prairie school system. And my first connection with PTA was when the first child, Philip, began at Milam School. And I believe that was in about 1965. And in going to the first grade there and learning about PTA, that was what caught my interest. I always wanted to take part in things that had to do with the children at school, and that's certainly a good avenue to be able to do that. So through the years, as each of the 4 children went through the Grand Prairie system, well, we were still right there in PTA.
All right, now you named Philip, but now we've left the other 3 out, and I think we ought to do some name dropping, Miss Doris.
All right. The second child is Mark Ford, and then we have Allison Ford and Laura Beth Ford.
All right. Now, would you tell us where all of your children are at this time?
Oh,
yes,
be happy to. The 2 sons, Philip and Mark, along with their families, and we have 5 grandchildren between the 2 sons, live in Arlington, and those little grandchildren are in beginning school years now, and I think their parents are in PTA, I'm glad to say.
Oh, yeah.
And then the third child, Allison, is a single adult in the Dallas area working. And the last child, Laura Beth, is a senior at Lubbock Christian University. So we're not quite out of school altogether yet, but it's about to come to an end, I suppose.
All right, now you will never get out of school because you'll go through all of this with your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, and as long as you're able to do things for children and youth, probably, knowing you full well, Doris Ford.
Well, I do enjoy Grandparents' Day at school, for instance.
All right. Well, we want to find out a little bit about you. Where did you go to school as a young person, Doris Ford?
Well, as a young person, my father was a minister, who meant that we, maybe every 3 to 4 years, moved from one town to another as his ministry changed. And I went to 3 high schools. The first one being in El Paso, Texas, the second one in Wellington, Texas, and then finally the third one for my senior year in graduation was Cleburne, Texas. And that's where I met Jack Ford. He was the hometown boy. Okay. I was the one that had been doing the moving around, but he was the hometown fella.
Okay.
So we met there, we're there after we married in 58. Then in about 1960 moved here to Grand Prairie and have made our home here in the best town in the Metroplex.
All right, now when you moved to Grand Prairie, Texas, following his job, did you work out of the home?
Not very often.
Yes.
I was a full-time homemaker, and did occasionally work out of home, but mostly was working to help him in photography as our work grew and grew. And then at some point, as the children were old enough, I guess you would say I became a full-fledged photographer myself. So.
Oh, that's great. All right, now, beginning at Milam PTA, what'd you do at Milam?
Well, just whatever they'd let me, I suppose.
Yes. Were you ever president at Milam?
No, he was only there a little while, and then, if you remember, about in 1966, they built or rebuilt the school out at Florence Hill.
Yes.
And our children went to Florence Hill for 1 year. Oh, while they went to Florence Hill, I'm sorry, they did not rebuild it then. They were building the LBJ school at that time. And our children went for half a year out to Florence Hill. And I thought the interesting thing about that is it seemed to be more of a little country school yet in the rural area, that our children got up early in the morning to catch the bus to go out in the country to school instead of the other way around. And I thought that was an interesting situation. And then as the LBJ school was finished, then they were brought back into what seemed to be into town, to the LBJ school, and went there until we moved to the part of town that we are now, which was in the Bonham school district. And really, then the majority of our years in PTA were finished at Bonham. And I did serve as president for the Bonham PTA.
All right. At Florence Hill, were you involved in the PTA at all, like a room mother or something?
Yes, I was always participating as a room mother. So for that one semester that we were at Florence Hill, we did take part in the parties and all there. And that's when the second grade boy, Mark, was old enough to finally say, "Mother, don't kiss me anymore at school." So I remember Florence Hill, because from then on I was not to kiss him anymore at school.
What was your first real job in the PTA?
Oh, I don't recall what the first chairmanship was, but most any of the chairmanships from membership right on, and eventually then up through the officers of a treasury and secretary and president, vice president, all of those things. So actually, I suppose between Jack and I, we covered most of the chairmanships at some time or other, which then, as a delegate finally to City Council PTA, is what sparked my interest in the City Council PTA. Oh. I thought that was really exciting.
And you were a delegate from Bonham? From Bonham, I see.
And as I began to attend the City Council PTA as their delegate, that opened up a whole nother avenue. I love the idea of the parents from all over town coming together in that form, and the council form is very exciting. And so it afforded me several years of service with the council because I found that to be very interesting and wanting to stay with that.
And after becoming a council delegate, and you had already been president of Bonham, then what was your next job in the city council? What all did you do at the council level before you became president?
Before president.
Lots of things. Huh?
Lots of things, that's true. And as you come up through there, finally you become secretary and treasurer and possibly director, and the aide to the president, and then the president. So you actually serve several years usually before you get to the point to serve as president. So you've tasted a lot of the different things that go on. You've had participated in a lot of the programs that way.
Did you go out of the city to the state conventions, the district conferences, and whatever the PTA offered, and the June seminar? And
right. We surely did. In fact, the year then that, would you like me to go ahead? The year that I was president of City Council PTA was for 89 and 90.
All right.
And that year in June, as well, let me say, we're installed as officers in City Council PTA in the May, at the end of the end of the year. And so officially you kind of begin in June. Before council meetings began again. And that June, the National PTA Convention was in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
And that it was my privilege to attend there. It was, I had in the year before gone to the state of Utah for that convention. I found the national conventions to be very interesting too, because then it was an even wider range of parents participating in school events and a wider knowledge of what was going on in America in schools. But anyway, in Atlanta, I'm glad to say that Mr. and Mrs. Ken Thorpe attended that with me, along with the District 2 president, which was our district president, Ms. Judy Johnson.
Yes.
And so we attended that conference in Atlanta. And you might know some of the things they were interested in there and in our state, I believe, was what was going on in the television media that affected children. For instance, they were already then talking about the talk shows and some of the adult material that was in the daytime on talk shows, and the resolutions that might be passed through the PTA organizations to try to influence that. And
what happened after the National Convention. You came back and were you already
Right.
stem-winded into something else? Did you have another trip to go on?
Well, not right away, but in the month of August, before we, or after our council had begun meeting pretty well, we participated in a ribbon cutting for the Hobbs Williams Learning Center. And Mr. Williams, as you know, had served as our superintendent before Dr. Crawford was here. And so that was a great honor to participate in that learning center at the Jefferson Middle School, where for the first time in a long time, special education, young people that were in the special education would then be able to attend some of the regular classes and be on that campus. Then in September, we had their School of Information, and for the City Council School of Information included training the officers and chairmen. That was always a big project, but a very interesting one. It would have been my duty to teach the presidents for the different units. In October, we had our district workshop in Irving, and several of our members locally then could attend the district workshops where we picked up on more training for our work in town. Also in September, we had a reception honoring, or we participated in a reception honoring the retiring city manager, Wendell Halsey, for his 25 years, and we presented a certificate to him there. Then in October of that year, the school board did a very nice thing. The school board, Mr. Dan Clemson was president of the school board that year, and Dr. Crawford was our superintendent. They had a special reception for the officers and chairmen of the City Council PTA and the presidents of the units and the delegates, and we thought that was very nice to express appreciation to the council for work done through the schools. And in November, then we had the excitement of going to the 80th state convention, which was in Houston at the time, and several of our members attended that. And one of the fun things we had decided to, in fundraising for our group, to because the theme was caring and sharing with a little bear on it, representing that theme, we sold little bears. I remember the fun of standing there calling people to come purchase a little bear from the Grand Prairie group. Then in February, of course, we have the exciting life memberships that are given in the program for City Council PTA. And that year, the Texas Life membership went to Mr. Ken Thorpe, who has been a long-time worker in the City Council of PTAs for us. And the National Life member was Sally Moore. And I believe at that time that we gave our first Extended Service Award, and it went to our District 2 President, Judy Johnson. And that Extended Service Award was for 15 years or more in the council service. So we were very proud of those people. And in March, we had another well-known person in Grand Prairie to retire, Mrs. Pat Wright, who had been over the Grand Prairie Charities, United Charities, for a long time, and we participated in a reception for her, presenting a certificate. And also that year, there was a reunion that City Council helped with for the class of 2000, and that was where different adults had paired up with students who are going to be graduating in the year 2000. And that reunion was well planned, a very nice program at the high school for those in that program. In April, of course, in the City Council, we have scholarships for the high school young people, and that's always thrilling for those that have applied and then won scholarships through the City Council PTA. Actually, part of the scholarships were administered by the City Council PTA for other groups, but that's always an exciting time. Then in May, as we came to the end of our year again, once again we participated in the project graduation, and that was our 5-year mark that year for having carried out the alcohol-free parties for graduation. And Mrs. Judy White had been the chairman for it the year before, and this year Mr. Roy Holland was to be the chairman for project graduation. So really there were many other meetings during that year that were to help parents, different training sessions through the school system that we participated in and through the council. Much goes on through the council through the different chairmen. But I think that year I was very pleased that a lot was accomplished for our students because of all these parents that volunteered their time through their local units, then right on up through the City Council. I think we should be very proud of those that have, served the council so well, therefore serving the students in Grand Prairie.
That's a wonderful tenure, and if we have time, we'll get back with you in a few minutes, but we need to give Nell a little equal time here.
She's doing a great job. Just keep on.
Let her roll and roll, right?
Just let her talk.
All right,
It's
Miss
fine.
Nell, we need to get to know you better, at least our viewing audience does, because we'd like for you to look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about the Nell Rogers that we know so well, and your family, and what brought you to Grand Prairie and when.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a little small town called Clifton, and the population there was like 2,300 at the time, and I won't say what year I graduated, but when we moved to Grand Prairie, I moved here, David and I moved here in '72.
And who is David?
David is my husband, and I have
right.
a son, Andy, who's a freshman at South this year, and we bought our home in '72, so we've been living here since '72. But the town that I grew up in, the senior class had 45 in it, so that tells you how small of a school it was. So when you move to a city like Grand Prairie, and you go to an elementary, and they've got 3 times more kids in that one elementary than you had in your whole
Schools.
first through 12th grade in your hometown. It kind of blows your mind, you know. And I got involved in PTA in '85. The president at Zavala Elementary, the president had talked to me, and she asked me if I'd do a chairmanship, and I cannot remember the chairman. You know, it's one of those unimportant chairmanships, you know, that you asked to do, oh, there's nothing to do, you know. So
And yet they work you almost to death.
Right?
Yes.
No. And so I got on the board in the fall of '85, and somehow they talked me into doing president the next year at Zavala in '86. They said, oh, it's easy, there's nothing to do. Boy, are they wrong. You have a lot to do, and I knew very little about PTA then, but boy, did I learn fast. I went to a summer seminar, which trains people about the chairmanships or whatever. It's a school for PTA parents.
Well, do you think that was worth the investment of time, Nell, to move away from your family? Because that's about 5 days that you need to leave Grand Prairie, go to Austin, stay in Kinsolving dormitory or one of the other dormitories. And
yes, it is, because well, you call it your vacation away from the family is what you call it. And now, instead of calling it summer seminar, they call it Camp PTA.
Oh, Camp PTA.
Camp PTA, and it's down to 3 days now. So I enjoy it. I think I have missed 1 year of not going.
How many usually attend that summer seminar?
About anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 members across Texas.
But then you're that much closer to all of your hierarchy in the PTA.
That's
you
right.
get to really know the president of the Texas PTA.
And a lot of the officers of state PTA teach the workshops, and the chairman teach their workshops of whichever. And you learn a lot, and I learned a lot. I mean, you learn so much that you kind of forget a little bit, so you have to take notes, and of course they give you all these handouts for references. And
after summer seminar, then what?
Then you get your PTA going.
All right.
And you realize that a lot of things weren't being done completely right. You learn your bylaws, for one thing, because the bylaws will tell you exactly what you can do. And when I was council president, I had a lot of phone calls from local presidents, and they would want to know, well, what do you do in this case? And I says, what do your bylaws say?
Yes.
So they would get their bylaw, they'd go, well, I don't know. And I said, you need to get your bylaws out and read them. And I said, they'll tell you exactly what you need to know. And some of them weren't too happy with what I told them, but that was what it is. I mean, it's in black and white. Why not? So, but I've enjoyed PTA, and my husband always knows when it's PTA night, whatever, even if it's middle school elementary or high school, because my phone starts ringing on Tuesdays about 5 o'clock. And he goes, oh, it must be a PTA night. And I said, yep, PTA night.
Who were some of your officers that worked with you your first year in the city council?
In my first year, I had Louise McDonald was my aide. Let me look it up. I have forgotten, Miss Ruthie. I mean, I was council president in 92 to 94.
90, that's 2 years.
That's 2 years, yes. And they say the second year is the easiest, but sometimes I wonder. Actually, Louise McDonald was my director one, which is similar to vice presidents on council.
Yes.
And so she ended up doing aide to the president. Joanne Moore was another director, and so was a Vicki Goodman. Jean Poland was my secretary, and Rachel Weems was my treasurer, and Hazel Bland was my parliamentarian.
Yes.
And I did not have a historian per paper, but I did do a historian paper, not a scrapbook, but a paper.
Yes.
And some of the things that that happened during the first year that I was council president was the high school study committee was formed. You remember that, that controversy that brewed over that?
Yes.
And they were formed to study whether or not a third high school should be built or the boundaries should be changed and whatnot. And
you served on that committee?
No, I was not on that committee. Not that particular one, but I know I was interested in what was going to happen.
Yes.
And then they, recommended that they just improve the 2 high schools instead of building the third.
Okay.
And also that year, it was our council's turn to help host District 2 Spring Conference.
Oh my.
And that is a very big undertaking.
Very big job.
Very big job. Of course, we were in with Duncanville and DeSoto and Lancaster and Red Oak in that area, and it was a lot of hard work, but it was very successful, and I loved the District 2 conferences.
Yes.
I mean, you get, the people that are on the District 2 board are not only the elected officers, but all the council presidents from from District 2 are also on the board, so you get to meet a lot of people.
Who was the superintendent that served while you were council president?
Dr. Crawford.
Dr. Crawford was.
Dr. Crawford was.
Okay.
And and he attended some spring conferences along, and if he couldn't go, he usually sent Mr. Crabtree, Bill Crabtree, or Mark Jackson attended one year that I remember, and he was very good about sending administrators to cover for him if he had a conflict, which I thought was great.
Did you attend the state convention?
Yes, I did.
Right.
I attended the state convention, and one year it was in, well, right now it rotates between San Antonio, Austin, or up in this area, the Dallas area. And I've been to San Antonio 2 or 3 times, and I've been to Austin last year was for the first time.
Yes.
And then it's been in Dallas. I also went to a national convention when it was here in Dallas that year.
Oh, good.
And I enjoyed that, and I also helped, I volunteered at it, at the convention. They always need volunteers for one thing or another, and I helped volunteer. And I enjoyed doing that too. And going to the conventions, you meet a lot of people from all over the state and national from all over the country.
After you had done your 2 years as council president of the Grand Prairie City Council of PTAs, did you go on up in district? What have you done in the district level?
Oh, in district, when I was council president, I was on the board for those 2 years.
All right.
And then I kind of got off of it, and then this year I got back on it as EPA and beautification chairman. Okay. Next year, and for the next 2 years, I'll be secretary for district. It'll be District 10, because we changed districts in June.
It is no longer District 2.
It will be
District 10.
Right.
Will it involve almost the same number of counties?
Yeah, almost. We'll lose, right now District 2 has 655 local units in it, which is the largest in the state. And when we change over to the redistricting,
Yes.
I have trouble saying that.
Yes.
In June, we will lose about 30 units, so we'll still have over 600 units in our District 10.
Okay. And do you have a new president for District 10?
Yes, we do. Her name's Michelle Humphreys, and she lives in Lancaster. And she's been Money Matters for District 2 for years. So if you have any Money Matters to ask her on PTA, you can call her and she can answer them for you.
All right. Now, all of the time since you've lived in Grand Prairie, you've moved here with David and little Andy. Have you ever worked out of the home?
Part-time.
Part-time. Tell us what you did part-time.
Well, part-time.
We know that Doris is into photography. What are you into?
Part-time. I used to work for, it's now Nations Bank.
Okay.
But I worked part-time for Nations Bank. And I worked there for about 12 years. Of course, it took us a while to have Andy. Andy came late in our life, so so I worked quite a bit before he was born. But after he was born, I only worked about 3 months out of the year.
Yes.
And the rest of the time spent with him. And of course, then he was got sick when he was real little, so that took another 2 years out of my life. But now I am working. I actually have a job, and it's considered part-time, but I still put in about 30 hours a week. And
well, good. You continue making a little money.
And I still make a little money. Plus,
keep you busy.
My job takes me to a lot of the schools.
Yes.
So
You're keeping in touch with schools.
Keep in touch with all the schools in Grand Prairie.
Okay. Well, you didn't tell us what David does for a living.
David is a vice president for Nations Bank.
Okay, and so you keep him busy.
Yeah. That's true.
And where is his bank?
He's in downtown Dallas.
Downtown Dallas.
And he's been with the Nations Bank for 35 years.
35 years.
35 years.
Oh, that's a nice
long
tenure. Well, would you say that your investment in PTA has been worthwhile? Your leadership, your doing things for kids and whatever?
Yes, it has.
Assess it for me, since you're a banker, and we have 1 minute to wind this interview down.
In 1 minute.
In a half a minute or so.
In a half a minute.
Yes.
I think no matter if I didn't have any children, I would probably still have been involved in PTA, because it's very important that we have gotten things done to help children in the schools. And I'm proud of that.
Yes.
Proud of that.
And you think it's enriched your life being a leader?
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. A lot of nice people you meet.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you two wonderful ladies for taking the time to come and share your lives, your PTA lives with us today as we end our history tape number 276. We had another president to be here with us today, and she has jury duty, and it's a good thing she did, because we took all the time visiting, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And thank y'all so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much.
And thank your families for tolerating all of the time lost and all of the TV dinners that they've had while y'all are in the PTA.
Yes.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.